Welcome back. Today we'll be looking at The Ring, which is the American remake of the original Japanese film Ringu. And I'm not looking at the Japanese series, mainly because those films got so ridiculous and convoluted that by like the third reboot in that series, it's hard to tell what's actually canon anymore. So for now, we'll just take a look at the remake. The film starts in suburbia with two high school girls complaining about crappy TV, turning it off. The girls start talking about creepy ghost stories, specifically a creepy videotape that kills you when you watch it, mentioning a strange aspect of the tape.
This woman comes on, smiling at you, right? Seeing you through the screen.
Let's be honest, everyone knows about the cursed videotape by now. It's fully ingrained in popular culture, so I'm not going to bother keeping it a mystery for you. But what is weird is the girls talking about a smiling woman on the tape like it's a really important detail, when really it doesn't have anything to do with anything, and is by far the least creepy of the tape's images. But yeah, anyway, the other girl, Katie, who's looking pretty freaked out, says that she has watched the tape 7 days ago. Her friend disregards her, but then Katie starts choking, looking like she's dying. But she's just playing a prank. Yet the phone rings, and she gets all serious again. She really needs to make up her mind. Either she's freaked out by the creepy videotape, or she's not paying it any attention. Katie decides on freaked out when they answer the phone, but again, it's just her mother. Then everything returns to normal again. I get the psych out stuff is supposed to make you unprepared when the freaky shit actually starts happening, but I'm getting a real boy who cried wolf feeling. And when the TV turns on by itself, I'm less scared, more just... Finally, getting to the point. Katie pulls the plug and an image on the screen moves behind her, with the fridge in the kitchen opening up. She goes upstairs to find her room has water coming from under the door, opening it up for the iconic death scene. Well, at least when shit actually started happening, things escalated quickly. But honestly, although I'm not a fan of the stupid prank fake-out shit, it's still a pretty good opening to the film that doesn't give too much away. And that death scene was pretty freaky, with the added bonus of every image from the tape being shown on screen for a fraction of a second. We then shift to a school as a young boy is drawing a picture, with his mother and our main character Rachel coming into the room swearing at her boss to collect the boy. The teacher talks to her about her son, mentioning the girl we saw die was his cousin, and the teacher shows Rachel some of her son's drawings, mainly morbid imagery of a girl underground. But that's not the weird part.
You say she died 3 nights ago.
Yeah, that's right.
Aiden drew these last week.
The boy does mention later that the girl, Katie, told him she was gonna die, so he's not psychic or anything. But again, I'm confused. How much of the tape did she actually take seriously? The kids seem to take it seriously, so which the hell is it? The girl's dead and she's still annoying me. The next day, Rachel and her son Aiden go to Katie's wake at her house. Rachel talks to her mother, and she reveals that the coroner found Katie died of a heart attack, and it's considered a non-suspicious death.
I saw her face.
I find that hard to believe. Last time I checked, if you die looking like the Crypt Keeper's arse, it's considered at least slightly odd. Rachel goes outside to talk to some of Katie's friends, and they mention the other girl who was there is now in a mental hospital because of the incident. Rachel wonders if it was drug-related, but then another guy butts in to tell her about the tape. And the girls mention they heard about the tape from Katie's boyfriend, who also died the same night Katie died. It's a great mystery that's slowly getting revealed in a gradual and suspenseful way. Back with Aiden, he makes his way to Katie's room as we see images of Katie's last moments, which again makes it seem like Aiden's psychic. And in the room, he looks at a TV, seeing the same strange image behind that she did. Rachel then comes in, saying he shouldn't be in there snooping, and once he leaves, she does some snooping, which is kind of hypocritical as she's done nothing this whole time but snoop during the whole wake. Rachel finds Katie's scrapbook and all the pictures in it have their faces scribbled all over, and she finds a ticket for developed photos. Wow, the film really is old, VHS tapes and non-digital cameras. She collects the photos, looking through them, and they're pretty standard, except for one of all the kids with their faces blurry and weird looking. Rachel finds the newspaper report of the kids' death, finding they all died at exactly 10 p.m. And calling to find out Katie's time of death, Rachel finds that she also died at 10 p.m. Except, if we look back, we'll see that Katie was indeed still alive at 10 p.m, so her time of death would have been more like 10 minutes past, which I genuinely wonder what would have happened if it was written the correct way. Kid died at 10 p.m. So did these two kids. And Katie died at 10 past 10. Nothing weird here. Never mind. Time to move on to a more interesting news story. Rachel decides to go to the cabin where Katie and her friends stayed at. She speaks to the guy on the front desk and shows him Katie's photo. He tells Rachel they stayed in cabin 12, mentioning that all the rooms have tape players, showing Rachel their selection. And that is when she sees it. The horrible, cursed videotape. You're Hunter from the future. Rachel takes the tape and rents cabin 12, and the cabin and its surrounding area is creepy beyond belief. Seriously, who would take a holiday there? Also, a single tree overlooks the cabin. That tree is a Japanese maple, which is a nice nod to the Japanese roots, no pun intended, of the film. But it actually goes further than that, because the Japanese maple bears fruit, and the fruit is known as a samara, which is a clever reference for later on in the film. So Rachel, throwing all caution to the wind, starts to play the tape. And the tape is one of the biggest differences between the American and Japanese film, because it's completely different. And personally, having seen both versions, this version I find is better and a lot more creepy, because the imagery is much more ambiguous as to what it means. Almost all of the images are like hellish Dali paintings. And once the tape finishes, the phone rings, and Rachel gets the iconic
7 days.
We then shift to the next day, and the film keeps track of the days from now on. So it's like a ticking clock for Rachel, raising the tension as the week goes on. Rachel has called her ex, Noah, who works in photography and video production. Rachel shows him Katie's photo, and getting him to take her picture, her face is now all blurry as well. She brought Noah there to watch the tape, but is reconsidering due to the spooky shit. Yet he convinces her to let him watch it. Now, I thought she was being foolish when she watched the tape, but now that she actually has evidence that gives credence to the idea that this tape might kill you, and she still lets the guy watch it. That's just stupid. Rachel's waiting out on the balcony as she sees everyone in the neighbouring building watching TV, which certainly emphasises the danger of this tape if it was out in the general populace, with everyone passively watching TV. Noah joins Rachel on the balcony, not taking the tape seriously. But then the phone rings. Rachel hesitates picking it up until the phone stops ringing. And Noah thinks Rachel's just overreacting, but she asks who made it and where did it come from. So Noah, seeing that Rachel's agitated, relents and asks for a copy of the tape to study. Rachel goes to work to make a copy of the tape, watching it through once again. And while it plays, she sees that the tracking numbers for both tapes are completely screwed up. And for some added spookiness, she stops the tape during a part where a fly is on screen, and despite the tape being paused, the fly still seems to move. The next day, Rachel goes to Noah's place, and they start looking into the mystery of the screwed up tape tracking. And the tape Rachel gives to Noah, the one with the copy sticker on it, is the exact same as in the original Japanese movie. I know I keep making comparisons, but it's clear for a remake, it wears its influences on its sleeve and respects where it comes from with the subtle references. Then Noah explains why the numbers don't make sense.
Okay, when you record a tape, the makeup of the tracks is like a signature for whatever did the recording, like a camcorder, VCR, whatever. So the control track could tell us where it came from. But to not have one, I mean, that's like being born without fingerprints.
Now, that sounds mysterious, but it's actually not true. And Noah, who's a video expert, was talking complete bollocks. The numbers on a tape are only there to tell the VCR what speed the tape needs to be played at and when to advance 1 second. So with the numbers messed up like that, the VCR would search for a track, not find one, and immediately eject the tape. But the fact that the tape is supernatural explains why it does play. They start analysing the tape, and at one point Rachel notices something strange, as there's more image outside of the frame. They try to get the tracking to move over, but forcing it too much, the VCR just stops. There seems to be some kind of spark between them, but then Noah's assistant comes in to kill the mood. Noah tells her what Rachel's working on, and when he says she should watch the tape, Rachel makes a swift exit. Well, at least she's being more prudent with the tape now. Outside the building, Rachel rather unluckily walks underneath a ladder. However, it reminds her of the ladder sequence on the tape. But then a guy shows up to use the ladder, so it's unclear if it was something caused by the tape or not. although I do wonder what he's gonna do up there when he gets to the completely blank wall. It's day 3 and we move to a mental hospital where Katie's friend is receiving treatment. She's being escorted through the corridor with a curtain being used to keep her from seeing the television. But she still stops walking when she sees it, in a great way to show us just how traumatized she is. Rachel starts interviewing her, but she doesn't get any answers to her questions. She starts talking about the tape, and when she touches her hand, the girl says that she will show Rachel in 4 days, which is pretty menacing considering she's basically telling Rachel she's gonna die. Rachel's taken the tape to a specialized video restoration place to see if she can get any more information from it, and she's shown to the machine she needs.
So, what are we watching? Home movies or something?
I'd really rather watch it alone. Really.
Whatever.
You just know that woman's thinking that Rachel's looking at some kind of kinky sex tape. But also, Rachel's being very careful with who she shows the tape to now, but why the change in attitude? It's not like she has any more evidence of the dangers than she had before. Kind of feeling sorry for Noah and her casual disregard for his personal safety. Rachel's printing some images from the tape for reference later, and she starts trying to see the extra part of the image again, and because of the more specialized equipment, the image manages to move, and she sees a distinctive lighthouse, printing the image before the machine shuts down. But we can't go too long without something weird and creepy happening, so as the machine starts back up again, the tape stops at the same fly section, and although it's part of the tape, it continues to move on pause. And then Rachel is able to pull it off screen, which seems to cause her to have a nosebleed. Which is actually the first proper supernatural thing to happen, and it was quite subtle as well, which I like. The movie's been slowly adding to these supernatural concepts, while raising the suspense, but without jumping the shark, which is how I like my horror. It's now day 4 with Rachel at the library. Man, she's really not in much of a rush, is she? A lot of the stuff she's done so far could have been done in a day. But anyway, Rachel's looking through books on lighthouses trying to find the one on the tape, and luckily, or conveniently for her, it's listed in a book from the exact same angle as the tape. It's an island called Moesco Island. So Rachel's straight to Google to look up the island, even though the web page is actually just a file on the computer itself. But she does find a picture, which has the horribly photoshopped image of the woman from the tape, a woman named Anna Morgan. She finds some newspaper articles on the island, finding the woman, Anna Morgan, is linked to a mysterious sickness that killed her prize thoroughbreds, and that the woman killed herself, jumping from a cliff after suffering hallucinations, and Rachel discovers she's been doodling on a picture. I do like that through the stories, Rachel finds links to the images on the tape, giving more explanation for them. I just wish that the images on the tape were different to the news articles, because then it would seem like they were created at the time, rather than just recycled images the film's production used. It's the next day again, and Noah is at the store buying some cigarettes, and looking at the security camera footage, he sees his face is all messed up like Rachel's was, which seems to destabilize his previous calm and complacent manner. Rachel calls a friend to look after her son as she's going to Moesco Island to investigate. She takes a drink of water, but then the call is cut short by Rachel suddenly choking on something, and it gets kinda gross and pretty disturbing as Rachel pulls one hell of a hairball out of her throat. See, that's what happens when you drink undistilled tap water. But that something coming out of her throat thing is probably the most standard horror aspect of the movie so far. But it was well done in terms of acting, and the effects were very convincing. The whole thing was very difficult to watch, which is what you want, really. But the creepiness isn't over yet. Rachel's pretty shaken, and walking throughout the house, she finds her son's door is open, and inside there's a girl who seems to have had quite a big accident in the middle of the room. As Rachel approaches her, the girl grabs her arm with a horribly dead, clammy hand, giving Rachel visions of some kind of medical observation room. And then she wakes up from her nightmare, finding she now has a handprint burn on her arm. I'm personally getting tired of the whole waking up from a nightmare thing in movies, but that's just me. Also, this will be the first time we've seen the Ring Girl, and it's kind of strange, because the white dress and the long hair over the face is an inherently Japanese thing. It's a spirit called a yurei, and the appearance is in all parts of Japanese culture. The white robe is a Shinto symbol for ritual purity, for priests and the dead, and the long hair is a trademark carried over from Japanese kabuki theatre. But also, when Japanese women die, traditionally they have their hair let down for burial. So really, because this is an American film, a lot of the symbolism and imagery is lost because it's not inherent to the culture, it's just a creepy image, which I have to admit is a major downside to the film. Now, if you're not interested in the imagery or don't understand the significance of her appearance, this won't bother you. But for me, I like clever imagery in films. Rachel goes to check on her son, but he's not in bed. No, he just randomly decided to watch the unmarked tape. I love the fact that you can see a brief glimpse of the girl coming out of the well, like the tape is gaining more power in cursing people. And Aiden watching may seem like a cheap way to raise the tension and peril, but it's actually very integral to the plot and will have some surprising consequences later. The phone starts ringing, but Rachel just picks it up and slams it down. The phone rings again, causing Rachel to yell at the supernatural being, but it's actually Noah calling after taking a load of photos of himself. He now believes Rachel's story, and she tells him that Aiden watched the tape, revealing that he's Noah's son, which is cheap raising of the stakes, because we know they're a family unit now. One more day down, and Rachel is dropping Aiden off with Katie's mother. And while she's in the house, Noah gets talking with his son, talking about why he's not around, saying he doesn't think he could be a good father. So instead of maybe not being a good father, he doesn't show up at all and makes sure he's not a good father. Talk about your self-fulfilling prophecies. In the house, Rachel's going through Katie's notebook, finding drawings relating to the tape. She goes to the car to drop off Aiden, and then it's time for a road trip to Moesco Island. Rachel with Noah get to the ferry to the island, and he hands her the drawing her son was making for her before she leaves. On the ferry, Rachel's going through her file of all the news reports of the island, finding an anomaly. An article mentions a daughter, but she doesn't appear anywhere else. And while on the ferry, Rachel finds a horse in its box, petting it, but the horse starts getting agitated, eventually breaking out of its box and running around. Now, the horse is reacting to whatever has to do with horses and the tape. However, that doesn't really make much sense, because for reasons I'll go into later, Rachel no longer has a connection to the tape anymore. The horse runs around the ferry for a bit, until it starts running straight at Rachel, but then it jumps, and it's not an elegant jump either. Yeah, that gotta hurt. Not as much as this, though. Churned up like horsey butter. We then get a brief single-frame image of the ring, which is a nice way to keep the tape in the audience's mind as we transition to Noah at the hospital Anna Morgan went to. He asks for the records, but obviously there's no reason they would just give those to him. So when he says he's been up there before, they know he's lying because the records room is downstairs. But it was actually just a clever way to find where the records room is, as Noah breaks in. Meanwhile, Rachel's gone to the Morgans' ranch looking for Anna Morgan's husband. There doesn't seem to be anyone around, but round the back she manages to find Richard Morgan working on his fences. For all those invisible horses, I guess. And he knows Rachel's there because of the horse news story. They start talking with Rachel pretending she's there just about the horse story. She mentions she knows about his wife's suicide, and finding the mirror from the tape, Rachel reveals the tape to him. But that's when things get kind of menacing, as the guy looks threatening and doesn't want anything to do with the tape. So he knows more than he's letting on. Before leaving, Rachel asks where his daughter is.
I don't have a daughter.
Excuse me?
What is it with reporters? You take one person's tragedy and force the world to experience it. You spread it like sickness.
I like how much his little speech relates to the tape, like he's experienced it all before and knows that it's come back to haunt him. And Brian Cox plays the subtle change in demeanour excellently. However, outside, Rachel sees the swing, and looking at Aiden's drawing, turns out he drew the house with a small child with hair over her face, making Rachel think the guy was lying about not having a daughter. Back with Noah, he finds Anna Morgan's files showing that she tried to have a child many times, but they always miscarried. He suddenly gets a nosebleed, causing him to drop a file, but this one is for a Samara Morgan, containing radiographs of strange images. Rachel calls Aiden to ask about the picture he drew, saying that the little girl showed him the image, and that she doesn't like it in the barn because the horses keep her awake, but she lives in a dark place now. All very cryptic and whatnot, but why is this kid getting special information? What makes him different to the many other people who have watched the tape? Or is he actually psychic now? It just seems a little too convenient that he's able to give Rachel the exact information she needs when it's never really explained why. Rachel goes to talk to the island's physician asking about the Morgan's daughter, mentioning she's seeing strange images in her head, with it having something to do with Samara. The doctor says that she's heard that before, as Anna Morgan started seeing images and hallucinations after they adopted Samara. The doctor referred the Morgans to another hospital, with her assuming Samara is still there. She also admits that things have been better since Samara's been gone. Man, people really don't seem to like this girl, do they? It feels like some kind of creepy Wicker Man witch hunt without any context, but whether justified or not, the stories certainly do set up the fact that Samara seems like someone you don't want to fuck with, really. Noah's still at the records place asking for a tape of an interview with Samara. The guy is very protective of his tapes and doesn't want any to leave the building, which is a problem when he finds the tape he's looking for is actually missing, taken by Richard Morgan. That night, Rachel goes back to the Morgans' house, finding the door open, and Richard Morgan's not home. She goes inside looking for him, and in the room with the mirror, she finds a VCR with all the files on Samara and the missing tape already in the VCR, which Rachel starts watching. The tape shows an interview with Samara, and the doctors ask her why she doesn't sleep, and then asking how she made pictures on the radiograph paper. Samara seems pretty quiet, but she says she didn't make the pictures, she just sees them. And this is where things get a little complicated, because Samara actually has the psychic ability known as Nensha, or thoughtography, the ability to project an image from one's mind onto a surface. And it actually has some basis in reality. For example, this is allegedly an image created through thoughtography. And that's why Anna Morgan was having hallucinations and the horses went wild, because Samara was accidentally projecting images into their minds. Well, I say accidentally. This next bit makes me think otherwise.
You don't want to hurt anyone.
But I do, and I'm sorry. It won't stop.
But as the tape ends, Morgan suddenly attacks Rachel and takes the VCR with him upstairs. Rachel chases after him, accusing him of killing Samara, with him practically babbling at this point about the horrible images Samara would show. And in the bathroom, Rachel finds Morgan has set up a shit ton of equipment. He tells Rachel that her son will die and she won't ever stop. He then electrocutes himself in the bathtub. Which, as suicides go, it was a lot fucking excessive. And I love the confusing juxtaposition between the seemingly sweet and innocent Samara and everyone fearing her to the point of madness. And with Samara supposedly creating this cursed videotape, it leaves a missing piece of the puzzle that is yet to be solved. Rachel screams for Morgan killing himself, but then Noah comes in to comfort her. Kinda convenient him showing up at that exact time, wouldn't you say? But sudden and horrific death doesn't stop Rachel, as she remembers what her son said about the barn, and goes to see inside. In the barn, they find the long ladder from the tape, leading to a small room. They go up and find it's a child's room, Samara's room. While looking around, Noah notices the wallpaper is peeling with something underneath. They pull the wallpaper off and find that it's the same tree Rachel saw when she first watched the tape, which leads her search all the way back to where she started, in cabin 12. Almost like a circle, some might say. It's Rachel's last day with only a short amount of time left, and she's basically given up, asking Noah to help Aiden because it's too late for her. But Noah won't accept that, pulling the phone from the wall, knocking over a vase of beads on the floor, which all roll underneath the table. Pulling the rug up, they find the wood rotten and pitted. And using an axe, Noah smashes open the floorboards, and beneath the cabin they find the same well from the tape covered with a stone slab. They push it off, looking inside, finding it's really deep. Because it's a well. Why did that surprise them? While they continue to look into the well, checking the depth, the screws in the floorboards above start removing themselves, with the TV leaking water. Which is a surprising shift in abilities. The tape's not been able to, or at least not been shown to be able to move objects, so it kinda just comes out of nowhere. Is this the ring or Final Destination? No, it's definitely the ring, and Rachel throws a rock into the well as they wait for it to hit the bottom. Instead, they hear something coming up, as a huge cloud of flies comes out. And in the confusion, a beam gives way above, causing the TV to fall, knocking Rachel into the well. She wakes up at the bottom of the well. Rachel's able to stand on the bottom, so I'm not sure how she managed to survive that pretty painful looking fall. And in the well, Rachel finds scratch marks and even worse, torn fingernails. Noah's gone to find a way to get her out, but looking up, she sees the stone is being pushed back over the top, trapping her inside. And while struggling with a fire hose, Noah sees the sun set, meaning that Rachel is out of time. Back in the well, Rachel catches her hand on some hair and she's grabbed once again by Samara, giving her a vision, and we see what actually happened to her. We see the well before the cabin was placed there as Samara looks into it, and then... Hey, wait a second, I know her. That's Samantha Darko, no wonder all this shit's been going on. Let's just hope the entire space-time continuum can survive another fucking movie. Anna Morgan approaches Samara, talking to her quite sweetly, until she sticks a plastic bag over her head, suffocating her, and dumping her in the well, which is really brutal to watch and very dark. But to make it darker, Samara wasn't actually dead, as she sees the well being closed with the ring image. Rachel is then back to reality with the handprint on her arm disappearing, and searching around, she finds Samara's body, which rather disgustingly decomposes in her arms as she holds her. Noah returns, telling Rachel that it's past her deadline and she's not dead. So the curse must be lifted, yes? I guess so. The rescue services get Rachel out of the well, with her and Noah reflecting on their victory, with Rachel not understanding why Anna Morgan would do such a thing. And Noah wonders how long you could survive in a well, and then Rachel realizes you could survive for 7 days, establishing that the 7-day curse is not just an arbitrary time period. Rachel gets home, making plans to see Noah more now, and she talks with Aiden, telling him how they saved Samara from the well. However, now comes the twist, as he's not happy.
You helped her?
What's wrong, honey?
You weren't supposed to help her.
You know, kid, you might have mentioned that before. And we see the full extent of the problem, because back with Noah, it's his final day, and the TV turns itself on. He goes to investigate, turning it off, but it just turns back on, now showing the well. Rachel tries phoning him, but he's distracted by the TV, and as he watches, Samara starts climbing out of the well. And as she gets to the screen, she literally crawls out of the TV. And this is the very best and creepiest part of the film, and the most famous, as Samara chases Noah around the room, and as she looks at him, the same thing that happened to Katie happens to him. Simply amazing scene. It's the combination of everything the film has been building up to. It's been showing weird things here and there, ultimately leading to that one hell of a climax, which is well known for a very good reason. Everything about it is just great. Rachel gets into the apartment, finding the place as Noah left it, with him sitting in a chair, and spinning the chair around, she sees him dead, screaming. But we don't see his face. She returns home and gets the tape, smashing and burning it in a fireplace, wanting to know why she survived. And that's when she realizes that she survived because she made a copy and her son watched it, as we see a montage of everything that's happened and Samara's interview.
But I do. And I'm sorry. It won't stop.
And with her saying that, it's clear now what she meant by it won't stop. She says her father wanted her to go away, but she knew she couldn't be stopped that way. Because the big twist is basically Samara wasn't affecting the horses and Anna Morgan by accident. She was doing it on purpose, and she's actually quite the evil bitch. And ultimately, the Morgans were kinda justified in trying to stop her. And the film ends with Rachel getting Aiden to make a copy of the tape to show to someone, saving him. Because the title, The Ring, doesn't refer to the actual ring on the tape, but the never-ending circle of the tape curse. So there you go, that was The Ring. And people not might like it because of the automatic response to any kind of remake, but for me, it's actually a really damn good horror film. Although it is a remake, The Ring does more than enough to differentiate itself from the original, allowing it to stand on its own 2 feet. However, it still adds a decent amount of references to the original film, deeply respecting its source material. The mystery is very compelling too, because for the most part, it's a mystery film with horror elements. It's all incredibly well acted, with the standouts being Brian Cox, and although I made jokes about S. Darko, Devay Chase is really good. She only has a few lines, but she gives Samara a subtle air of menace that's not so subtle when she goes full-on kill crazy. And there's a reason why Samara is considered a horror icon now. A great first installment. However, after its success, they just had to make a sequel. But The Ring 2 is directed by the director of the original Japanese film, so how could that possibly fail? Oh, in so many ways. And because this video was filmed out of order, you can actually watch my review of The Ring 2 on the channel right now. See you next time.